Hi, I'm Darlene with the Friends of Fairview. We're a nonprofit organization here in New Albany, Indiana, that is dedicated to raising money, preserving Fairview Cemetery here, as well as preserving the stories and the legacies of those that are buried here. So one such story that I want to tell you today is the story of Mary F. Croxall. But before I get into that and I introduce you to her, how about we see who she's here with? As you can see, I'm in front of the Croxall Monument. Now, just so you know, there are 3 generations of Croxalls buried here. This is the middle generation of the 3, buried in different various sections all over the cemetery here, but we're going to focus on this one here, the one in the middle. So, who is buried here with Mary? If we go this way, we see we've got 3 people. 3 people here. So, who are the people on the end? We have Alphonsus Duboc Croxall, Alphonsus D, and Elizabeth F. Croxall. Elizabeth F, her maiden name was Fisk, so Elizabeth Fisk Croxall. And Alphonsus D. Croxall, the D stands for Duboc. Duboc is French. It was his mother's maiden name. So he was named from his mother's family. She was actually when she was just 2 years old. This is a story for another day. We'll get into her story eventually one day, but just the long and short of it is when she was just 2 years old, her family had to flee. They were French aristocrats. They had to flee the Haitian Revolution that was happening in Saint-Dominique. They had a vast estate there. But when the Haitian slaves were revolting during the Haitian Revolution in what is now called Haiti, but it was Saint-Dominique when they were there. So she was born in Port-au-Prince. His mother, Alphonsus Duboc's mother, Alphonsus Duboc Croxall. So their family fled when she was just like 2 years old. And her sister, I think, was 3. So the 2 of them, the rest of their children, her siblings were born here in Philadelphia in the United States. And then eventually they all ended up over here in New Albany, Indiana. Crazy, but anyhow. So that's where the Duboc comes from his mother. That was her family's maiden name. Her family name was Duboc. So Alphonsus Duboc Croxall and Elizabeth Fisk Croxall were Mary F. Croxall's parents. Now the F in Mary's name, while I couldn't find anything to verify it in any document, I'm guessing it probably means Fisk, which was her mother's maiden name. So I think that's where the F comes from, but I can't swear to it 100% until I see a document that uses that as her middle name. But that's my suspicion. Mary F. Croxall, that's what I always see on any document with her, is just an F, no full middle name. So then next to the parents of Alphonsus and Elizabeth, we have her sister. So this is Aglaé A. Croxall. This is her sister. Aglaé never married. And then over here on the other side of the monument, so that's the 3 people buried over here. Then here we're back at the monument. On the other side over here, we have 2 people. We have Hugh A. Matheny and Delphine Croxall Matheny. So Delphine was Mary's sister. So Mary and Aglaé's sister, okay? And then this is Delphine's husband, Hugh Matheny. And then in the center, we find Mary. And this is Mary Croxall. Mary F. Croxall is buried right here. And yes, it is an unmarked grave. I had this confirmed with the cemetery officials. She is buried here in front of this monument with her sister and her husband on one side, and then her other sister and her parents on the other side. But Mary has no headstone. And of all the 3 generations of Croxalls in this cemetery, she is the only member of the Croxall family that does not have a headstone. What? Well, Mary's story has actually become near and dear to my heart, and I have committed, it's a personal mission of mine, project mission, to get Mary a headstone, to raise the money somehow, come up with the money to make sure that she is acknowledged and that her existence is acknowledged and that Mary has a headstone. And I'll tell you why. At the end of the story, I think you'll see why she is just a tender spot for me, and I want to make sure she has a headstone. So here we go. Mary Croxall, right here is where she is. Now, Mary Croxall was born in 1867 here in New Albany. In the 1900 census records, she never married. In the 1900 census records, she's living with her family, her parents, as are the other two sisters are there as well. So in the 1900 census record, they had a brother, also Alphonsus D., but he's buried on the other side. One of the other generations of Croxall's buried with his wife over there and her family. So they're over there on the other side. So it was the three girls and then their brother Alphonsus D., of course, Junior Croxall, right? So now you know where the D, Duboc, comes from. So Alphonsus and Elizabeth Fisk Croxall had 4 children. Their son Alphonsus Jr., and then the 3 girls, Delphine, Aglaé, and Mary. Now the 3 girls were living with their parents, as I said, in the 1900 census records. Well then, their father dies, Alphonsus D. Sr. dies in 1902, just a couple years after that census record. And Mary continues to live with her mom, as do the other 2 sisters. They're all living there, the 3 girls, all living with their mom on Elm Street, 1717 Elm Street, is where their house was. And they were living there for, close to a decade. And then we get to the 1909 New Albany City Directory. So this is 9 years after the 1900 census records, and all of them are still there with their mom on Elm Street, okay? So Mary and Delphine and Aglaé all still with their mom on Elm Street in the 1909 census record. Get to the, or not census record, city directory, the 1909 New Albany City Directory, pardon me. So we get to the 1910 census record, and the two sisters are there, Delphine and Aglaé, but Mary is not there. Where the heck did Mary go? I couldn't figure it out. So I'm searching high and low, trying to find what happened to Mary F. Croxall. And I find her. In the 1920 census record, I find her in Madison, Indiana, in the Southeastern Asylum for the Insane, listed as a patient of that asylum in Madison, Indiana. So I did a little research on that asylum, and I found out that it was built in 1910. The original asylum for the insane that was in Indianapolis was becoming overrun. They didn't have room enough for people, so they built 5 satellites. They built some satellite asylums, and they started transferring different patients to some of the different satellites, and one of them that they built was in Madison. So it was built in 1910, as I said, and it was called the Southeastern Asylum for the Insane. It's now called the Madison State Hospital. So what is now the Madison State Hospital in Madison, Indiana, was the Southeastern Asylum for the Insane. Goodness gracious, right? Now, Mary, I find her there in 1920 as a patient of the Southeastern Asylum for the Insane. Now, I was trying to figure out, I could not find her on any 1910 census records, and I believe the reason why, I can't prove this, but it's my hypothesis, that the reason why I did not find Mary F. Croxall listed on any 1910 census record is because she was probably in the process of being transferred there at the time. Because in 1910, remember, that's when the asylum opened, and that's the census record. I can't find her. So it's likely she was in the process of being transferred there, and she just got slipped through the cracks and didn't get listed on any census record. That's my hypothesis of what might have happened on the 1910 census record, why I can't find her. So, because she's not here with her family, she's not listed anywhere, so she's somewhere, right? But then I find her there on the next census record, the 1920 census record. So I'm thinking she was there. And the reason why I think so is because her death certificate, which I have a copy of, her death certificate lists her as having been a patient there. That was her residence, listing the Asylum for the Insane, the Southeastern Asylum for the Insane, as her residence at the time of her death, and that she died there. The place of her death was there. So she died April 11, 1935, okay? So she, on her death certificate, it listed that she died of gastric intestinal issues. However, a hemorrhage or something like that, a gastric hemorrhage, I believe that's what it said. And it said that the secondary cause, though, had been that she had had dementia for 27 years. So if we take 27 years from 1935, we're getting to the point about the time that she was committed, right? About the time that she was committed to the hospital. So she was diagnosed with dementia for the last 27 years of her life. So my guess is that they just couldn't care for her, and they just had her committed to the asylum because they could not care for her because she had dementia. And that would have been the asylum she would have been sent to, was the closest one, would have been the one in Madison, and because that's only an hour away from New Albany, as opposed to the one in Indianapolis, which would have been 2 hours away. So I'm sure that that was where she was sent. Plus, they were trying to not send more people to Indianapolis because they were already overrun, and they were trying to have some of them sent to all these different satellite asylums that they had created. So it looks like, it seems as if Mary F. Croxall spent like the last over 2 decades in the Southeastern Asylum for the Insane because she had dementia. Now, we do have to realize back in that time period, they didn't really have a lot of ways to treat people that had Alzheimer's or dementia or anything like that. So a lot of those types of folks, unfortunately, ended up in insane asylums, and that's how it was. We now today have ways that we can care for and treat patients that have those illnesses. So we can do different things with them. We have a way that we can help them without having to send them into an insane asylum, because they're not insane. They just have a mental breakdown with the dementia and the Alzheimer's. The brain is breaking down. It's a disease. They're not insane. They just have a disorder, a disease that is degenerative. So it's a physical illness as well as that affects the brain and all of that. So anyway, we can deal with the patients that have that now in a much more humane, different way. But back in that day, they didn't really have a lot of options for how you would handle someone that gets difficult to handle. And so that's why I feel passionate about making sure that Mary F. Croxall has a headstone. See right here? Could it be that the reason why she doesn't have one, I'm hoping this isn't the case, is because the family was just embarrassed with the struggle that she had, and they didn't know how to be out with it? Maybe not, I don't know. But I don't want Mary's existence to go unacknowledged. I want her acknowledged existed, because every person's life has value. Every person's life is valid, no matter whether they were one of the movers and shakers here in New Albany, as I've said before, or not, right? Every person's life was valid and worth being treated with dignity and respect, and worth being acknowledged. So I want her existence to be acknowledged, and so I want to get a headstone for Mary F. Croxall. It's going to happen. I'm going to make it happen, right? Yeah, absolutely. So that is the story of Mary F. Croxall, who spent the last over 2 decades in an insane asylum, diagnosed with dementia. Yeah, that happened. And, so that one, it just gets me right here. And I think, little Mary, you need a headstone so that we know you were here. We know you existed. People can walk by and say, Mary F. Croxall existed, because there is proof that she did. So that is my mission and my goal, is to make sure Mary is acknowledged, her existence is acknowledged. So that is the story of Mary F. Croxall, and there you go. There you have it. There it is. So I wish you all a beautiful rest of your day, and until the next time and the next story, stay tuned. Bye-bye.